That was a very depressing episode. Arknight's Perish in Frost episode 5 was pretty depressing. Now, I do have to admit, I hope that we're not seeing sort of a trend here, because this is twice in a row where we have the main villain character is paired up with another villain character, and one of them dies, question mark. I mean, yes, technically the whole thing with Misha was significantly different just because they were a part of the whole situation. But again, it goes in that whole idea of Misha became a part of the reunion because of somebody that they knew. In the same case here, you do have somebody, Faust, essentially joining and following in Mephisto's footsteps, especially with the whole flashback stuff where it shows that Mephisto was forced to take upon himself what I'm assuming is Erignium, and Faust joined him. Now, again, where it goes from here, if it turns into the next episode, suddenly Mephisto goes absolutely crazy ape, which I'm going to assume is going to be the case. We'll see. But yeah, first and foremost, I mean, even though I'm technically already into this whole thing, Crunchyroll, please stop putting other languages in your subtitles. Granted, the later thing with Swire, it technically was spoken in Japanese. She said something else, and even the Japanese subtitle says it's some sort of another language slang. But the whole opening segment with him yelling, blah, like, it's like, do I have to Google search everything just to find out what the English is actually? I'm watching English subtitles, but yet I have to Google search what this means, and thus I'm going to another translator for another translation of what you're supposed to be translating. Anyways, it's like a massive pet peeve of mine, and they've done it like 3 times in this show particularly. Again, I understand whenever the Japanese characters say it, and I'll hear it, because I'm like, that doesn't sound Japanese. But stop with turning Japanese into another language when I'm watching subtitles in English. Anyways, that aside, excellent episode, despite the fact of it being extremely depressing. And honestly, there's a side of me that really feels like it was all over the place. It was especially all over the place. It was just jumping around like crazy. We were telling like 4 different stories at the same time. Obviously, the main focus story being Mephisto and Faust. Now, I like this because they put a lot of emphasis on the idea that everybody trusted Faust, which is really heartbreaking because, as we see from the history, again, we have this whole situation where Faust and Mephisto were together, they were friends. It gets into this idea that it seemed like they were in a very poor situation. Mephisto was being abused by his father, but they were spending time together and enjoying books about dreams and whatnot, and emphasizing what Mephisto's dream was, and that was to be a singer. That's what he wanted to do. We didn't get an idea until later on what Faust's dream was. Faust's dream ended up being the idea that he just wanted Mephisto to always live his life smiling. And that's essentially what his sacrifice is. He wants Mephisto to be happy. I want you to go on and be happy. Not this. Like they kind of show where, presumably, what they're implying is that Talala eventually brought them under her wing. But, based on what Mephisto says, that lady stuck an odd rock down my throat. Which I'm assuming, again, was Talala probably forcing Erignium down his throat, which is, it brings up 2 question marks. One is the idea, is this what makes them powerful? Is this what makes the boss enemies so powerful? Is that they like consume an actual infection, like they're consuming the gem itself, which could explain what I've been questioning for a while now, is why do characters like Talala and Frostnova, why are they so powerful? Compared to everybody else that's infected that have arts, why are they so powerful? And again, that could be the explanation. Maybe Tala is doing exactly what was done to her by her father. What if that's the reason why Chen doesn't like their father? Maybe that's the reason why Tala killed her father. She was forced to consume one of these gems. And again, that kind of opens up the door to a lot of those question marks that I have. But yeah, it looks like Faust, in seeing that, followed. Said, I'll be infected too. Let me do the same thing you. And it's so sad because it gives a lot of emphasis to the idea that Mephisto didn't want this, or at least from Faust's perspective, I know you don't want this. But it does seem like whatever Talala did to him drove him nuts, which that makes this is one of those things where it's simple, but I always appreciate this in writing antagonist characters. Ones that either they're from something of tragedy, and so you understand why they're so broken, or it's just the case that they were completely broken by somebody. You can't understand why they're crazy because they're crazy, but at the same time, you at least get a sense of what caused it. What led him down this terrible road? And it's sad because it seems like that was a spiral out of control. And the idea that as we're going forward, Mephisto is, of course, aiding Talala. Talala and Faust are the only people that he trusts So he's following Talala, and it does technically explain why he's so combative to everybody else, like with W, with Frost Nova. Everybody else that he encounters, he doesn't like them, and they don't like him. But now we get a sense of why he doesn't care. It's like, these two are who I trust. Everybody else I don't trust, and I'm not going to be friends with them. All he cares about is helping Talala and protecting Faust. And the sad thing that comes from that, and this is the difference, what Mephisto sees versus what Faust sees, is that all their comrades, their brothers in arms, those that are aiding them, the people under Mephisto, they're all afraid of him. It makes sense. The dude is making all of our allies nuts. They're making this horde. They're creating these zombies. And we don't want to do that too. We're having to kill our own friends because they're going nuts. And Faust sees this. Everybody trusts him and not Mephisto. Because at least Faust isn't making everybody go crazy and kill everybody. It's screwed up, but at the same time, it's also understandable and tragic at the same time. Like, there's so many mixed emotions and whatnot around Mephisto's character, making him a very complex character, although, yes, fueled by one simple concept, which is him going nuts, him literally being nuts, him being off his rocker, him losing what he originally was, which was just somebody that wants to sing. Somebody that had a dream that slowly got warped by this infection, warped by Talala, warped by the situation, and warped by the idea that he has lost really any semblance of morality for those around him. It's, again, really, really cool, but screwed up at the same time. But yeah, I feel bad for Faust, obviously. Him seeing his friend going downhill, him wanting the best for Mephisto, but at the same time, obviously not working. Obviously, no matter what he seems to be saying to him, it seems like it gives the indication that Faust hasn't really stopped Mephisto. He's been letting Mephisto do this. Obviously, we haven't seen their relationship for a long time, but our sense here is that this is kind of a rare case. He's literally telling them, bind him up. We're going. I'll give you guys an opening. We're getting out of here. Mephisto, stop. Like, stop doing this. I don't want you to use that art anymore. Which, again, is, by all accounts, for our perspective, seems like the first time he's really told Mephisto, stop doing this. You're going too far. This is horrible what you're doing. He doesn't want Mephisto to be doing this. But yeah, all leading to him getting Mephisto out of there, and one last ditch effort. He was trying to draw the horde away from them, obviously, but that kind of leads him to rushing the LGD, him running up there, the barrage of arrows coming down, the assumptions that he's toast, but oof, massive oof. It was kind of interesting to kind of see that he raised his crossbow, but he didn't fire in the end, which is kind of interesting. Now, they did have one other shot where he was confronted by Greythroat, and Greythroat had the jump on him, and he's like, why didn't you fire? And she's like, well, I was surprised that she didn't say, Amiya told me not to. She's like, no, you're worn out. You're worn out. You've been jumping around. You've been using your arts a lot. She assumed, my assumption is that she's seen that Faust was trying to help or at least alleviate the pain of those that were his friends, his allies. But she didn't take the shot. And so in respect, he didn't take the shot. But he also said the next time we see each other, you better fire because I'm going to fire. I was interested to see if they kind of showed a contrast with Greythroat and Faust right here, because earlier indications was that Greythroat wanted to fire on sight. Kill anything that she sees. Kill the reunion on sight. By all accounts, it seems like Greythroat has been on the battlefield for so long that she does seem to have a different way of viewing the whole situation. And I was kind of curious if that was going to draw a contrast with Faust, but it didn't seem like they wanted to connect anything there. Or maybe at least in the coming episodes, maybe we'll get more into Greythroat, because yes, the next part of this episode was a lot to do with Greythroat and Blaze. Blaze seemingly not liking what she's seeing that the reunion are using the infected to fight the infected for the sake of the normies. But obviously, in most cases, she's just like Amiya. She seems to be going around and doing, or at least doing what Amiya wishes. She's not taking lives. She's knocking people out. She's telling them to drop their weapons. She's giving threats, but she's not following through with them. She's doing good in the idea of not spilling blood. And again, technically, by her comments made about the reunion using infected to fight others, she doesn't like it. So I'd assume that Blaze aligns more with Amiya. Now, the question mark that's popping up is when Greythroat shows up, they indicate that the two of them aren't on good terms. By Greythroat's admission to Amiya, It seems like she's for the idea of kill on sight, but she's respecting Amiya's wishes to not. Amiya doesn't want her to harm other people. But again, it's sort of indicating that this is something normal for her. Because she's on the battlefield so much, like Amiya says, yeah, I know that you're on the battlefield a lot. In a lot of those cases, you don't get to choose. Which is an interesting admittance by Amiya. Because yes, was the last time we've seen Amiya on the battlefield, like an actual battlefield. Amiya also had to face that same decision. I can't not do this. Because when, Doctor was threatened, she took a life. She had no choice. She knows that on the battlefield, you can't just go around and just go, okay, stop fighting. Okay, you're not fighting anymore? All right, next person. Like, you have to take down your targets or at least disable them in some way. So I'll be curious to see what is the thing between the two of them that's not cozy. And again, that might be a fact that the Blaze and Greythroat on the battlefield seen the battlefield differently. Maybe Blaze once was on the battlefield. But yeah, the scenes with Blaze was a little bit heartbreaking. She goes off and Doctor follows her. You get to see her pretty much taking down the reunion, saving one of the LGD, and that LGD individual, it's like, oh, you're an infected too, raising their crossbow to her, even though the fact that she just saved his life. It's kind of sad. And again, they've kind of addressed that a few times, especially with Amiya, that she's going around saving people and still people see her as a threat because she's infected. It is that aspect that unfortunately is still kind of a case here. It is more annoying, the idea that the LGD is using Rhodes Island and yet still fighting alongside them has that prejudice against them because, yes, a lot of the folks in Rhodes Island are going to be infected. But it was still sad to see somebody bad-mouthing my cute little Blaze. And yes, the final pretty significant thing that we had in this episode was this elite group, that question mark. Chin looking around, she ends up stumbling upon a group of people that were cloaked with these big hats, and she asked them what they're doing there, who are they, and they said pretty much, we're not going to interfere with each other, and we're going to handle this new infection, you handle the reunion, and we'll not get in each other's way. Indicating the idea that this is a group that is working for Lungmen, which when she asks Swire contacts her people, which ends up being Lin. We kind of find out that apparently, yes, there is an elite group there, and they are handling the infected in their own way. They pretty much, you have LGD, and then this is like, I don't know, this elite mob group that's kind of secret. It is interesting that Swire is able to get in contact with somebody that knows what's going on, whereas Chin doesn't. It kind of gives an indication that Swire has more connections than even Chin does, which makes sense because Swire seemingly is a part of some family that is very prominent in Lungmen. So it makes sense that maybe through her family's connections, she knows some higher up people. Or at least she knows Lin personally and thus knows what Lin's doing. But yeah, this is a sad part because this is another thing that's sort of weighing down on Shin. We've already gone through several episodes now at this point of Shin not liking how Lungmen handles the infected. She has gone along with it for the sake of the greater good, but she doesn't like it. This is something that's always bothered her. And now that, yes, we've kind of indicated the idea that she might be infected, because again, in the previous episode, she had this cut. Mephisto used his ability to control the infected, and it started glowing. Again, I'm still assuming that Shin is possibly infected. Or again, it could be something that happened way back with their father and Talada. But either way, this is another thing that's going to be piling on the top of how she doesn't like how Lungmen's handling this, because now she's walking around finding random people, civvies, obviously, people of the slums that are being slaughtered by this elite group. She's not supposed to know about this. There's an indication that she shouldn't know about this. I think even Lin said to Swire, who's seen her? Oh, Shin's seen them. Oh, is that the only person? This is a group that's not supposed to be known about, and they probably didn't want Shin to know either, because this, again, is going to affect how she thinks of Lungmen. Again, it's kind of that showing the darker side of Lungmen. And again, still acknowledging that this is sort of a dirtying of the hands. Like, we see this as a threat to the greater good, the greater population, but this isn't a happy and good way of handling it. This is a horrible situation that shouldn't happen, but is happening, all under the guise that it is a good thing, and it's unsettling in that regard. So, yeah, not too happy, and it's probably going to mess with Shen even more. I swear by the end of this, I think Shen's going to be pretty much wanting to take over Lungmen, but yeah, it's pretty rough. Swire was not too happy about it too, knowing that Lin, it seems to indicate that Lin, her father apparently created the slums as a way for people to get away, possibly the infected, and now they're just wiping them out, which is, yeah, seemingly be counter to what her father would want. Though Linda says that father would want this too. So yeah, crazy episode. Yeah, super heartbreaking for Faust, super heartbreaking for Shen. Just all around not good stuff. Again, as per usual, pretty solid visually episode. Directing's always on point. There's only a couple of points in this episode where I felt like it should have shown more, but it didn't. But overall, really fantastic episode. But yeah, that's my thoughts on episode 5 of Arknights. We'll see where it goes from here. We have technically, 3 more episodes. It's, again, another 8 episode length, I think. So not any episodes left. So hopefully it comes to an interesting climax. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you did, make sure that like button down below, comment, let me know what's the the episode. Additionally, if you're new to the channel, make sure that subscribe button's got my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions, top list. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you like this content and you want to support more, I have a Patreon link, tips link, super thanks, membership button down below. Greatly appreciate everybody it does, and y'all take care.